Okay, hello and welcome to the 36th episode of the Naina Redhu experience. Thank you for listening. I'm probably going to be uploading this in the same week as the 35th episode because this is something I wanted to talk about. I'm just back from a meeting and I've done a couple of meetings this week, and I wanted to talk about the state of the blogging industry right now, what clients are talking about, what they're looking for, and the kind of responses they are receiving from bloggers, etc. So the 35th episode published on Wednesday. If I'm able to edit this, you'll probably be seeing this on, hearing this or seeing this on a Friday or maybe a Saturday. I met some really interesting people. So I work with all kinds of brands, small, big, multinational, international, Indian, indie brands, and it's always a pleasure meeting with people who are trying new things, trying to create something solid out of a vision that they've had for a while. I met one such girl today. They're on a platform called Covetlo. That's Covetlo. I think it's a play on, obviously, you covet something, and in Hindi they say isko covet kar lo. Covetlo, I think that's what it is. It's a very interesting concept for vendors or sellers to actually go and sell their products on the platform. It is also an interesting place for people like me to all of us shop, so we can go there and curate a list of products that, for example, we have bought. So it's going to be an extension on your browser where you click on if you see a product and you click on the Covetlo button, and it gets added to your Covetlo profile. So it could be a product that is on your wish list, which your followers or your family members or your friends will be able to see and covet themselves. It's an interesting concept. I mean, it doesn't sound like something radically new, but I found it quite interesting. Also, I really vibed well with the founder, Nisha. So it was a very interesting conversation. It was meant to be one of those, maybe a 15-minute or 30-minute meeting, and I think we ended up sitting together for almost 2 hours, which was fantastic. I really enjoyed talking with her. And I was on a bunch of calls also after that. So one of the things, as a blogger, as a photographer, I feel that it's not limited to you. If you like a brand, you want to collaborate with the brand, you want to help build that brand, for example, or you want to be part of the brand building journey. It isn't just about wearing a product, buying a product, talking about a product, helping sell a product. There's so many layers to what a blogger can do, which is why I recommend to a lot of younger bloggers that don't just focus on being a professional blogger. There are people who do that, who have been doing it very successfully. But starting out with that goal while staying true to the things that you believe in is not, the success stories that you hear are the success stories. There are a lot of failure stories that you will never hear of because no one likes to talk about failures. No one likes to talk about how a campaign that they were trying to do didn't work, or how a brand worked with X number of bloggers, spent so much money and nothing happened, or how someone wanted to be a career blogger but within the first 1 or 2 years they spent a lot of money and time but they were not successful. So you only hear the positive stories, you only hear what are considered successes. I would highly recommend that you please try to think about the context when someone comes and tells you, oh, so-and-so is, India's leading blogger, so-and-so is like the blogger to look out for. Or if someone themselves come and, they tell you that I'm like the leading blogger in India right now, always think about or ask them questions to contextualize it. It isn't, what does it mean to be India's leading blogger? India, obviously, is a geography, so you can limit it. It's quite clear that you're based out of India. But for example, me, I work with international brands as well. So am I then an Indian blogger just because I belong to India? I'm saying these are the critical questions that you need to really look at. Leading blogger means what? Like what do you mean by leading blogger? Are you now going to come out and say that this is my bank statement, and these are the bank statements of all the 50,000 other Indian bloggers, and this is how I'm a leading blogger? How are you going to qualify that statement? Please ask these questions whether you're a brand or you're a PR agency. I know it's not easy because you have to deal with so many people. On the one end there is a client, on the one end there is a PR agent, on the one end there is a blogger, on the one end there is a digital agency. So there are lots of people involved in the process, and I understand it can get tedious to ask all these questions from all these people. It's much easier to say, okay, this is our budget, we want you to do this, and that's the end of the story. In the long run, you are not helping build the brand by doing that. Just because you have disposable budgets, disposable marketing budgets, just because you think that X brand is doing it, so we should also do it. Please don't look at it like that. I mean, I'm as a blogger myself, I'm not saying that you don't hire me. I mean, of course I want you to hire me, but I don't want to be involved with projects where you just come to me and say, oh, we want to do a Twitter chat. Oh, we want to do one Instagram update. There's no point really. I mean, I leave so much money on the table when I say no to these things, because a lot of brands want to do just this. My point is that it doesn't really matter. It's a drop in the ocean, and not even that in many cases when you work with a blogger and just tell them to do an Instagram update or just do a Twitter chat or get a product trending, for example, on Twitter. It doesn't mean anything. People, see, I mean, sure, it is, I'm not saying just completely stop doing it, but there are better ways of doing it that are going to be more beneficial in the long run for all parties involved. It's not as simple as me posting something on Instagram, if I write about a product and suddenly everyone who sees that post is going to buy that product. It doesn't work like that. The idea why you should engage with a tastemaker or someone who you think is an influencer or could be an influencer for your brand, the idea is that they should talk about your product over a period of time. They should experience your product or your service over a period of time and then talk about their experience, which their audience also will appreciate. You talk about, for example, I wear a lot of Cotton World. I have never worked with the brand in a professional capacity, but they are probably the only Indian brand that does large scale casual wear. So I can go and buy a t-shirt from them, a cotton t-shirt for I think 500 rupees, I'm not sure. And I know it'll last me maybe 2-3 years instead of, something that I buy from a Forever 21 that will probably fall apart after 2 washes. So I talk about Cotton World a lot. I've never worked with them. They've never approached me for work. I haven't pitched to them for that matter. But my audience, if I talk to someone and say, oh yeah, do you know about Cotton World? They're like, oh yeah, we've seen it on your updates. We know you like that brand. All of us are in that sense influencers. We all have influencer circles. If you're not a blogger, you still have, people in the family that talk about that, oh, someone is wearing something and you're like, where did you get this from? I would like to see what is the quality like, how long has it lasted? Maybe I will also consider and I will buy this product. That is influence. It's word of mouth. You talk to 50 different people you meet daily, you see what are they wearing, what is the style of shoe they're wearing. Even though you might not consciously point it out and look at and say, okay, so that is an Oxford. From the corner of your eye, you kind of still observe that, and that's what influence is. So the aim for someone to become an influencer is not ideal. Same time, brands need to identify influencers that specifically work for their brand. It's just not about how many thousand followers someone has, for example, on Instagram. You can try, sure, if you have the leeway to spend a certain amount of marketing budget on someone who has 100,000 followers or 500,000 followers on Instagram, you can try and see how that goes. I think there is a certain category of product that would benefit from engaging with someone like that, where you end up, someone is wearing a dress and they post about it and they have 500,000 followers, and maybe even 1% of followers if actually go and click on the link, and then 1% of that 1% ends up buying something. So there is a chain there, but again, even with them, I would recommend that you do a campaign over a period of time. You work out something that you do a 3-month campaign instead of doing just one Instagram update. For example, one of the things that I do, or I highly recommend or try to pitch to clients, and it doesn't always work because budgets are what they are, is that I would prefer to do a photo story on a blog. Yeah. And the photo story can be anything. For example, if you are also a blogger or you're a brand, there are so many ways that we can work this out. So one of the ideas is that if a brand is launching a product, okay, so there is a product launch event happening and you're inviting an X number of guests and there is a certain flow to the event, what is going to happen, what does the product look like, it's on display, etc. So that you can hire someone like me. Apart from the fact that I'm a photographer, I can come there. Even if they're just phone photos. Phone photos are excellent these days. Especially on the blog, you don't really need to have very high resolution photos. So I bring my camera and I shoot a story of the event. It's an overview of the event from start to finish. And then I put it together in a way that tells the story of, what was the product, who were the people there. So you get a sense of what the event was about. You get a sense of the brand. Because whoever has done the event, the production of the event, what is the kind of food that was available, who were the people that were there, what were those people dressed like, what was the music like. So I could then come back and I could publish a story on my blog with those photos where I put, for example, 20 photos. Okay, so 20 photos from start to finish of the event. And when my viewers look at that story, a lot of them come back to me and tell me that, oh, looking at these photos, it felt like we were there. For me, that means that the story has been successful. I have been able to convey the essence of the event and help building that brand. Now, this is a one-time thing, okay? So you do a blog post and you do this. What I now do is that once the blog post has been published, obviously in the blog post I include photos, I include a little bit of a write-up of what exactly happened, what did I do there, what do I think of the product if I have experience with the product. And in the end, I always link back to the brand's website, the brand's social media handles. If there is a direct link to buying the product, then I link to that. And I don't do affiliate marketing. I don't do affiliate commissions. As a general rule, if I'm working with a brand, I want to be paid for the work that I'm putting in. And I am not selling your product. I am creating awareness about your product, your brand, and your services. If that leads to sales, that's a bonus. As a general rule, I don't work with affiliate commissions, and I want to be paid for the work that I'm putting in, for the time that I spend and the effort that I spend. So while it might work for some bloggers, if that's what they want to do, their entire website is just about products, services, sales, etc., then affiliate commissions can make sense. For someone like me on my blog, I don't even have ads. I have never had ads on my blog. They will probably never be display ads. I hope it never comes to that. Because for me as a photographer, what I look at it is that, I shoot street style, okay? So when I'm shooting street style in a public space, I don't need that person's permission to take a picture of them. Now, fine, I don't need their permission, but how I use that image also depends. I can't use it commercially. I can't use it for commercial purposes because then I'm using their likeness to maybe sell a product or advertise something and I'm making money off that. So I'm making money off them. That's not first of all legal. So if you are running a blog and there is a sidebar ad and you're showing street style on the side, you are technically using it commercially. And it's a bit of a gray area, so this is not legal advice. But I prefer to kind of stay away from it as much as possible so that I don't create any confusion in anyone's mind. So for me, things like, affiliate marketing don't really work. I do include links once in a while to books that I read, etc. But because that's not my model, I don't really make a lot of money from there if I make any at all. So that's one of the ways to do it, that once the blog post is done, then I take each photo and I make a social media update from that. So I schedule all my updates in a way that, it goes out to my Facebook personal profile, it goes out to my Facebook page, it goes out to my Twitter. I also post on LinkedIn and on Pinterest. So what happens is if I have, for example, in this blog post, for this event, if I did 20 photos, then I do 20 social media updates. Now, I don't have to do an update a day. I don't recommend it. I don't think it's a nice way to do any kind of assignment like that because even your audience gets jaded. It gets tedious. You keep seeing the same brand being mentioned every day on every platform that I'm on. I don't think that's a good idea. But for example, if you have 20 photos, you can post one photo every 3 days. If you do that, now you have a campaign for 2 months. it becomes a social media campaign for 2 months. That's the way I prefer to work. I think that's the way there is value for the brand, because every 3 days if I mention a brand or a product, I'm reminding the audience. And whenever you post an update on social media, not everyone in your audience is going to see it. So initially I was quite worried about the fact that I might be spamming my audience, and some people might still look at it as spamming, because at some level it is. If you're seeing, if I'm working with 5 brands at the same time, then I have a campaign going for the next 2-3 months with 5 different brands. So you're getting about at least 2 updates every day. And then there is also my personal project. So I make about 6 to 7 updates every day on each social media platform. And it does drive a lot of traffic to my blog. I think it is great traffic, because these are people who are genuinely interested in the subject, which is why they come to the blog. So, that is one model. So you're actually doing a campaign with one blogger like this. You produce visuals, they write content for you, and then they talk about it on their social media platforms. Now, I would recommend, and I recommend this to all my client brands, that they should look at this content and figure out how they can reuse it themselves. So for example, if you're buying photos from me, right? I give you buy a usage license. So if you buy a usage license for digital use, which means you use it on your social media, then you can repost these images. You can talk about your brand from your point of view. You can talk about the brand's event from your point of view. If you don't use this content, I think it is a huge waste, because you are hiring somebody, you're paying them for the effort, you are paying them for a brand building exercise. If you don't end up using these images that are helping in brand building for your network as well, look, the blogger has already used it, okay? Then you in the contract, you must figure out a way for them to sell you a usage license so that you can further use this content for your own campaigns, because the blogger's audience is going to be different from the brand's audience. The brand is more likely to have actual customers on there. And the kind of stories that I do, for example, behind the scenes, how is a product made, how was an ad shot, what were the behind the scenes photos, what actually happened, who did what, customers want to know. It's a way of storytelling. Customers want to know what is the product behind the scenes, who are the people involved in the brand. So as a blogger, I'm more interested in showcasing that side of things. I am not so interested in, a brand saying, okay, wear this for us and pose for us. I do that also. I'm completely comfortable in front of the camera, as those of you who are watching the video probably know. And I don't mind posing at all. I enjoy it, but I don't want it to be my thing. There are personal style bloggers, and that side of the business is also excellent, let me tell you. I know that. I know personal style bloggers who are making a lot of money, but that's not for me. So as a brand, you must also understand that there are, X number of bloggers who work in X different ways. You need to build relationships with them, meet them. And I don't think that doing a blogger meet is the ideal way to do that. It might, it might bring you a lot of bloggers who would want to come and meet you and figure out if there is work, especially if there is paid work. But you will still need to invest time in having a conversation with them and trying to understand how they work and whether that works for your brand or not. So I would instead recommend that you have this 1 week where you set up 3 meetings every day and you meet X number of bloggers. Obviously, after you've looked at their blog, you've looked at their social media following, and you figured out that, okay, this tone of voice sounds like something that will work for our blog. I know it requires investment of time. Don't just ask your PR agency to just give you a list of who are the top 20 bloggers and then call the top 3 bloggers for whatever. Because on what basis are you deciding those top 20 bloggers? Is it just on the basis of the number of followers they have? Yes, there is a place for that, but in the long run, I don't think that is ideal. I think you'll end up burning a lot of money with not a lot of our return on investment, unless your product kind of fits that category. So product which costs 500 rupees, 600 rupees, if you work, or even 5,000 rupees, depending on the kind of audience that the blogger has, you actually might end up making some sales. But I don't think it's a sustainable idea in the end, because you're just pushing commerce then. I would, as an engaged customer myself of brands that I support, I'm more interested in, of course I'm interested in commerce. I want them to, make a huge profit. I want them to succeed. I want them to grow. I want to grow with them. But I'm more interested in meaningful stories. For example, if you're a listing platform with X number of vendors, you do vendor training for them. I'm more interested in coming and covering that vendor training and figuring out who is, maybe make a portrait of that vendor and write 4 lines about them and then link that to your website. I'm not interested in utilizing your services for free. Ki, acha, okay, got a manicure, got a pedicure. Oh, this service is awesome. There is a place for that, of course, which is why I said that you should work with a wide range of bloggers who work in different ways. But for me, it's just, it's doing this event. For example, if it's an event or if it's a product that is being manufactured and how it is being put together from start to finish, I will produce that content. I will share it with my audience. You must also. For example, if you're a clothing brand and you do sustainable clothing and you get someone to cover a story from start to finish on where is the fabric sourced from, how are the patterns cut, what happens next, how is the cloth dyed, how is it stitched together, how do you customize, and finally involving the customer in that process where you follow the product reaching the customer and when the customer opens it and they're like, oh my god, this is so cool. It's a very relatable, identifiable way to do a story. And the problem that usually comes up when I discuss this with brands is that because it is time consuming and there is a huge time investment, it ends up being expensive, which brands don't plan for. So I would recommend doing something like this. But again, it's a 3-month campaign, for example. You do one story. So you can actually spend 3 months marketing budget on that one story. Instead of saying, oh, this month's marketing budget is only this much and I can't do this story with that. So you actually look at 3 months marketing budget that you can dedicate to that one story. So you do one story on the blog and then you get a campaign that blogger is doing for 3 months where they post an image every 3 days or every 4 days on their social media. And you follow it up as well. Now this requires a bit of planning, obviously. If you know that you're coming out with a new collection in the next 6 months, then you start talking with bloggers now. You try and get them some of the dresses first, so that they already have access to it, they wear it, they do the story on it, and that builds up to the actual release of the collection. It's not just about inviting bloggers to events. It's nice. I don't personally like going to events unless I have a relationship with the brand, or if, I generally say that, look, I absolutely have to come to this event, can I please come in like half an hour early and can we have a separate business meeting before the event starts? Then I will stay for half an hour for the event and I will leave. I don't really want to eat out. I want to come back home in my PJs and relax and have a meal. And I don't want, what am I going to do at the event? What am I going to do there? So I'm more interested in setting up a business meeting. For me, in 2017, as a photographer and blogger, till now, I have been like avoiding meetings. But this year, I'm going to meet people and figure out how the market is changing. What are brands looking for? What has their experience been so far? I'm interested in meeting people, not just because at some point it might lead to work. Sure, it might. But I'm interested in stories. There might be something that might appeal to me and I might follow it just like that. I might find a great brand that I would like to collaborate with that otherwise I might never have heard of. So I am kind of trying to go and meet people. It is a bit of a time investment, yes. And especially Delhi traffic is crazy. Especially, I mean, during this art fair week that happened, it was just intense. Going from Gurgaon all the way to Okhla, an hour and a half, 2 hours one way, and then come back 4 hours just in a cab. So it is a time investment. So whoever comes to meet me or I have to go and meet them, it is a time investment for everyone. I would recommend that you don't just go there and have a very dry meeting. Okay, what can you do for us? What can we do for you, etc. I think try to get to know people. Try and understand where they're coming from. And this works both for bloggers as well as for brands. So I really wanted to get that out. And I think there are people who are interested in looking at the long run. They are focused on what their brand is. They don't want to go off brand. I think after today's meeting, I feel quite hopeful that people like this do exist. So thanks to Nisha for this, and check out their platform. It is Covetlo, Covetlo. And I'm going to check it out myself because earlier I was just checking it on the phone and I wasn't being able to, they have a pop-up window says that sign up with Google or Facebook. I wasn't being able to close that. So myself, I'm going to check it on the website right now. But I do feel hopeful It looks like there might be change in this space, and maybe my videos will get less ranty. Like this one wasn't all that ranty. And thank you for listening to the 36th episode of the Naina Redhu Experience. Bye and take care. See you soon.